Hello folks, and welcome to Linux for Seniors. Hopefully you will subscribe. None of my videos are going to be under 2 minutes. My target audience is seniors, and the Linux world, the open source world, is a wonderful place for a lot of different software and different type of desktops out there. So my channel has a lot of options, in other words. And moving forward, I will have a lot of different subject matter. Today's subject matter, I'm going to talk about wireless networks, simply explained, and I'll touch upon Ethernet also, what that is. So if you're shopping for a new router or network card, you may want to take a look at this video. None of my videos are going to be under 2 minutes, so I heavily suggest you subscribe. That way you can click on this video and others, start watching it, hit stop, come back tomorrow, watch the remainder where you left off, or next week, or whenever you have time. So my previous channel, I did over 450 videos, if I recall, and so this is not the first time I've been doing this. Now, my target audience, again, is Linux for Seniors, and I do encourage that you subscribe, but Linux really is for everyone. And more importantly, I'm going to try not to use big words. I'm going to try to explain things simply. I don't have the best camera equipment in the world. I make do with what I have, and a lot of folks do also. But in either case, I'm going to welcome you, and I'm going to talk about and give you examples of wireless technology, and I'll even talk about how your web browsers work in the background, and hopefully you will enjoy this video. So I'm going to step toward this camera here because I do have some toys to show you. So I'm not going to try to make you sick, but I'm going to try to rotate this around and then move it in the down position, and hopefully it'll focus in. If you want, I do have a light sitting off to the side. Let me turn it on and see if it works better. Is that too much light? It might be. Yeah, let's leave it off. So let me start by talking about some of these toys that I have laying around here. So this is a working console, and it has one of these in it. What is this thing? This is a network card that fits inside of a console computer. Very typical. And if you have one of these in your console computer, you can actually upgrade these things to the latest technology, for instance. And I'll talk about the different speeds of networks in a simple format, okay? So essentially this just has a connector. It's got a little split, if you want to call it, down here. Maybe you can see that. They're very simple to put in. They're not that expensive. This part here just plugs into a spare USB port. Normally you have one on your motherboard. And there's just one screw holding this in. So that normally fits. Let me get a pointer out. I'm sorry I don't have a lot of lighting to mess around with, but the card is actually sitting right here with this blue connector. It's a tiny connector, the same size as this thing right here. And you can also put these into some of the larger connectors, providing you make sure you put it into that slot. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but there's the antennas for that particular card sticking out here. So these kind of network cards have a good reception because of the antenna part. And you can also put USB type, which I'll talk about those in a second. But more importantly, if you have an old one of these, you can upgrade these. And a lot of these things work without you actually having to install any drivers, especially fairly new motherboards within the last 5 years. This one here, I believe, is 6 years old, the motherboard itself. And all the Linux operating systems that I've thrown at it did not require any drivers. It picked it up right away. All right, so that's one example that you can do. So you can pick these up at Amazon or your favorite electronics stores. And I'll talk about the different technology here in a little bit. So as I move along, let me talk about some of these other toys that I have. So I could have one of these, this internal network card, for instance, and instead of having these antennas, I would have these little jobbers that screw into those ports, and they do come apart, by the way. So I'll just give you an example of that. I could technically do this, providing they're the same type of threads. And now this would be like sitting on top of your computer, possibly. You plug it in the back of the machine, and you can move this around to get the better reception. So it's basically just an antenna. So some of the other technologies out there, older technology, would be something like that. That is actually a Wi-Fi receiver or transmitter and receiver, an old one. And being that it doesn't have a blue insert, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here, this would be USB 2. But this is a network card and it's very old. And you can use that on a laptop or even a console. Now keep in mind though, when you're dealing with things like that, the antennas on these things are obviously very small. So this is an example of a wireless thing from Apple. It's very old. It also has an Ethernet port here. So this will be considered like a router, okay? Provides wireless to the Apple toys or others, okay? You may have seen one of these. What else do I have? Well, I'm going to show you some examples of these. But let me talk about this for a second. So this is a typical home router, what it looks like. And I'll flip it around. This port here normally has it looks like a big fat telephone cable. It's called an Ethernet cable. It normally goes from here over to my cable modem box that goes into my internet service provider, ISP. So your internet signal goes into that box, and then from that cable it goes into here. Then it can be distributed wirelessly, and also more Ethernet ports can go to computers. Does that make sense? And usually these have a little power supply connector on them. And then if you flip these over, a lot of these things will have the actual kind of network written kind of in the model number. This one actually states right on it. I don't think the camera can pick this up, but I'll read it to you. It says AX1800 Wi-Fi 6 router, model number Archer AX21. The keyword is AX. So that's an AX router, the latest technology. Even though this is old looking, I've had that for a couple of, I want to say a year or two. It was in my garage. And I have several routers in my home, so, because I have lots of computers. Now, this is a typical gaming router. This monstrosity looks like an octopus. So you can buy these also at different sources, and same deal. One cable here goes to the cable modem to the internet service provider, and then if I had some other Ethernet type of computers, in other words that fat telephone cable, that would go from here to the computer. So I have 4 ports. That's very typical on a lot of these routers, by the way. This port is blue. This one, these 4 are black. They could be different color. All right, and they're pretty basic. You know, there's 1 or 2 switches somewhere on here. And some of these have lights. I'll tell you what's going on. But more importantly, this is kind of heavy. I'm going to read you the label on it. It says ASUS on it. So the model number of this is RT-AC5300. The keyword here would be AC, the type of router, the speed of the router. And I'll talk about all of that stuff in a minute, and I'll explain it to you in simple terms. So I'm going to put this little octopus over here. Looks like a monster. So anyways, I think I'm done talking about the toys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually minimize the screen for a second, and then slide my chair, if you don't mind. I'll make some noise here. And talk about some things that I have here. So this is just wallpaper that came from that person there. And I just happen to enjoy some Star Wars stuff once in a while. So don't forget to subscribe to Linux for Seniors if you want some additional videos. But I'm going to open this thing called Stuff. I'll talk about the technology last. But first we're going to get an idea of some of the stuff you can purchase if you're in the market of, wireless technology. So let's take a look at the first one here. I'm going to hit the space bar here and I'll blow this up. So you have a typical one here that plugs into a USB port, whether you have a laptop or console. So the port down at the bottom here, where my mouse is circling, is blue. That means USB 3. USB 3 is faster than USB 2, but however, some computers don't have USB 3 ports on them. Okay, be aware of that. So this one has 2 antennas, and they look like you can flex them back and forth. So let's move on to the next one here. So this one here is one of those that obviously the picture is big, but this will be a small footprint, something you plug into a laptop, for instance. Just keep in mind when you start purchasing these guys, they don't really have big antennas, do they? Because they're in a small package. So the antenna would probably be on the inside, but more importantly, probably around the perimeter is the full scope of the antenna. In other words, this probably has better reception and transmission than these. Keep in mind, these have to transmit to your router and also receive at the same time. So the farther away you are from your router, your home router, the weaker the signal. All right, here's another example of one that is also USB. I'll give you a bigger picture. That one also has a flexible antenna on it. And probably the antenna moves back and forth. So on this one here, bigger picture. So this kind of looks like a box. USB 3, obviously denoted by the blue port. This is like a clamshell, so it folds down. So this more likely is the antenna part. And that's the circuitry that does the transmitting and receiving end of it. Here's another one with a 90-degree angle. So a lot of times when you're dealing with laptops, you may want something on a weird angle, possibly. I'll make it bigger. So that this would flex back and forth. You get the idea, hopefully. And here's another example of a small one, really small one. And keep in mind, when you buy these, this part here fits inside your port, and this is the only thing sticking out, and that is the only surface area that has the antenna on it. So the farther away you climb from your router, the weaker these get. Here's another one that has a stand on it. So, I'm sorry, didn't mean to close. One more time, meant to click that. So this would be obviously a flexible type. You could use this for either a console or a laptop. So this part fits into a stand, and then this is the cable that would plug into a USB 3 port in this case because it's blue. So there's another option for you. A lot of these products you can find on different stores, Best Buys, Amazon.com, or your favorite electronics store. I'm not aiming for any brand name in here, even though you can see it. I'm just talking about the general descriptions of these. Okay? Now, let's take a look at that one. No, there's no laser beam in here. It's just giving you the idea that your signals are going to go in and out of here, and this part is screwed onto there. You remember when I showed that earlier, that card that fit inside the console with the same type of screw-on threads? Well, it's the same principle, and this would flex back and forth. This is obviously a small one also. Now let me open up this chart. Let's talk about this for a second, and I'm not going to try to make it too complex for you. I'm going to try to make it simple. So what is this, all this 802.11 junk? Well, stuff, sorry. So 802.11 is what they consider the, how do I put this? The standard for wireless. Starting with the B or A, or which one is it? All right, so you can see the progression in here. So megabits per second, not bytes, bits. Difference in that. Usually if you translate 8 bits to a byte, that kind of thing. Anyways, you can see the progression curve. In other words, this will be the speed of your wireless network, receiving and transmitting. So there's the A, there's the G, there's the N, and the AC and the AX. I'll talk about these two here. So AX is currently Wi-Fi 6. It's a very fast technology. You got lots of toys in your house? Probably you want to get an AX router or an AC router. AC routers work rather well. Now, the two routers that I showed earlier, I believe one was an AC and one was an X. Okay, but more importantly, the more toys you have to connect to. Are you the type that have bought a bunch of smart switches or smart light bulbs? You probably want one of these two guys for a router. Now, what about network cards themselves? Well, first of all, are they internal or external? So a lot of your laptops have wireless already built into them, right? What type of wireless does your laptop have? You don't know that. You can watch some of my other videos to get motherboard information. I showed that just the other day. And one of the sections in there for INXI command will show you what kind of network card you have. The other thing to remember is these N networks, or even below, if you are trying to stream like high definition movies, they'll have a difficult time trying to keep up. You'll be buffering, in other words, that wonderful circle going around and around trying to get your video to play because you're using some sort of online services like Netflix. So more likely you want to stick with an AC or an AX router if you can afford them, if you are shopping for a new home router. So now you can see the progression of this 802.11 jargon. A network, G network, N network, AC network, AX network. Another name for AX is Wi-Fi 6. Another name for AC is Wi-Fi 5. Wireless interface. Not talking Ethernet. All right, now I'm going to close that. Now I'm going to give you some interesting information. So we all surf the internet. We all use web browsers to look for stuff. You use your favorite search engine to look for something. What I'm going to do here is, let me go to Google for a second. Yeah. I'm just going to use that as a search engine. A lot of people may use DuckDuckGo or something else. So I'm going to look for HP.com as the example here. Hewlett Packard. Company been around for a while, HP.com, okay? This is how us humans talk. This is not how your web browser talks to that server. Let me show you that in the background. So basically, HP.com is human language. The .com is commercial. You may have seen .edu, .mil, .org, that kind of stuff. .org is supposed to be nonprofit. Okay, all of that stuff gets translated into something. And there's a thing called a DNS server that does this magic. You don't need to know too much of this, but I'm going to show you how some of it gets translated using a terminal command. So I'm going to use ping.hp.com just to give you the example that the web browser would use a number to connect to. So I'm going to hit Control C for a second. And so Hewlett Packard is how we talk, but the computer needs a number similar to that. It's a 4-digit number like 15.72.80.135. So I'm going to use the upper arrow key on my keyboard and I'm going to ping Amazon.com. So what's going on in the background is something is getting resolved and it's giving me, and this will keep pinging, so I'm going to hit Control C. So you can see that there's a number in here. And a lot of these websites also have more than one server that you connect to. Amazon has quite a few Linux servers, just to let you know. They also have cloud services that are ran on a lot of Linux servers. But more importantly, Amazon.com also is a web address or an IP address, Internet Protocol. Your web browser needs information like this to talk to it. It's done through your DNS, Domain Name System. So DNS is a lookup system. So I was trying to, I don't know if I can do wiki on this, maybe, to get a better graph. You know, I have never tried it. So I've been around computers for over 30 years, so I have several certificate in network stuff, but anyways. The domain name system is what is used to look up stuff for humans, to translate that into an address. No, there's not a decent graph here. So let me try to explain it to you. So basically, when you type in something in your web browser or manually type in an address to try to connect, it actually contacts a DNS server to say, okay, what are you looking for? So I'm looking for hp.com. Okay, let me send you over to the com server. The com server has all the addresses of all the .coms. If you're looking for something that is abc.edu, then I'll send you over to that server. You get the idea so far? All right, I got sent over the the .com server, and the .com server is saying to your web browser, what are you looking for? HP, Hewlett Packard. All right, here's the address for them. And that address is a 4-digit number. Your web browser takes this information in the background, contacts that server, and there's a conversation, kind of like talking to your friend, that starts. So now you have what they call a tunnel. Your web browser is talking to that server. And then from there, you can, of course, split your searches inside of Hewlett Packard, for instance. Just remember, a lot of these big websites like this one has multiple servers. But they still need the initial contact of a number to talk to in the background. Domain name system. So let me give it to you in a different way. So you are paying someone on the for your internet services. Internet service provider, ISP, internet service provider. You're paying this company to get online. You're paying this company so you can stream your Netflix movies or whatever you're doing, your email, blah, blah, blah. So in most cases, people connect to their routers, to the internet, through the internet service provider, and they use their DNS service, domain name system service. So your internet service provider knows exactly where you're going at all times. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. However, there's also free DNS services that don't use your internet service provider. I happen to use those. And what am I using? Well, I'm actually using OpenDNS. But I'm going to actually punch in free DNS servers for search criteria. Here's some examples of public free DNS servers. Google actually has one, actually two. So the first set of numbers, I'm going to bring this back up, so maybe just give you some trivia here, is I'll do the last statement there, Amazon.com, hit Control-C. Don't let all this junk confuse you. All I'm looking for is that number I got highlighted. So it's 4 sets of numbers, 54.239.28.85. Don't have to remember any of this junk. More importantly, stuff. I don't want to use that word anymore, or try not to. Anyways, so 4 sets of numbers. That's 4 sets of numbers. That's also 4 sets of numbers. It just has an and in between there. So that's their primary DNS server. That's their secondary or backup. I use this service right here. That's my primary DNS for OpenDNS, and that's the secondary. Can I take you on a tour of OpenDNS for a second to let you see this is a free service? So let's use the... let's actually allow OpenDNS to do its job. So OpenDNS is actually looking this up for me in the background and giving this to my web browser. Yeah, because I'm using their service. Oh, I should back this up and let you know that this is a Cisco company. So OpenDNS is owned by Cisco. Cisco provides probably most of your backbone routers on the internet, at least for the United States. Those are for large companies and stuff. All right, let's go to OpenDNS.com. We can read all about it, as one would say. But scroll down to the bottom. Here's those addresses provided for you. You can actually go into your properties, and I'm not going to get into the scope of that in this video, but I actually am using these two here to look up this kind of information on my computers. So I have OpenDNS as the service that actually looks up web addresses and translates that for all my web browsers. It's something that you plug into your network settings. It's in here. I don't want to open this up because it's got private information also. But anyways, just, if you're wanting to see stuff like that, leave me a couple of notes. If you want some advanced videos, I will do that. But in the interim, I just wanted to make you understand that this is a service that's available for free, as a lot of these are. And let me go back one more. So a lot of these are free, and some of them cost money. Okay, there's some more stuff here. There's a bigger breakdown for you. So yeah, you could technically, when you're actually doing this with your network card, you can actually highlight that and paste that into your settings. All right. Not going to get into, don't trust my word for it, none of that. Do your own research, okay? But I wanted to let you see that this is what I'm using, and it's a free service. Now, let's move along. So we all know now that when we're doing searches, that stuff gets translated in the background, and the web browsers get an address similar to that. So we can get, your machine can talk to that server, for instance. That's how all that magic happens. Internet protocol address. You also have an internet protocol address right now on your machine if you're connected to the internet, if you understand the process. Too much information? Maybe. But at least I wanted to give you an idea. If you're shopping for a new router, if you are shopping for a new network card, whether it's USB based or internal on your console, just remember this chart. What type of network are you shopping for if you're not familiar with this thing? You're okay with AC. Is it backward compatible? Yes, these are backward compatible. They are also, when you're getting into these kind of routers, there's also two different frequencies they transmit at 5 gigahertz and 2.5 gigahertz. That's the cycles per second. Some heavy frequency there. Usually, if you are looking for faster speed, it's the 5 gigahertz band. My router, all my routers provide dual bands. And that might be, now, my advice to you, if you are having older computers and older devices that rely on internet, is to make sure that you purchase a router that has dual bands on them. They have the 2.5 and the 5 if you're wanting the 5 gigahertz. And a lot of routers are just 2.5. A lot of your smart light bulbs also require only 2.5. They cannot handle 5 gigahertz. Be aware of that when you purchase smart light bulbs. There's another tip for you. A lot of them are not, when you're purchasing a LED smart light bulb, a lot of that information is not discussed up front unless you dig into the details of the product that you're purchasing. But when you are shopping for a router, your home router, you may want to think about that. Get one that has dual band if you can afford it. The 2.5 and the 5 gigahertz. You can refer back to this video at any time. You can also watch this again, hit pause, open up your whatever store online to look at it. Take a screenshot of this even. Okay, let me open this up. Actually, I'm going to click it this way. Then I'm going to close this. Oops, sorry. Where is that? Where did it go? Where did it go? All right, let me open it up fully like that. That might be easier. Most of your Linux utilities have a screenshot tool. A lot of times you can press the function and insert key and you can get something like that. And it'll take a snapshot. You can do this while watching this video on your particular distribution and save your screenshot. That way you can take a look at it just from the video itself. Or you can just hit stop on this video. Open up your favorite search engine and go to your toy store and start shopping. That way you have this chart to look at. But again, if you want some modern equipment, if you can afford an AX router, I would do that because they're backward compatible. I would still pick a dual band one. And most of the newer AX routers are all dual band routers. They're always, they should be compatible to at least either a G or an A network. And some of them all the way back down to B. I believe most of the AC routers are completely backward compatible all the way down to these devices. These are old. New, old. Okay, I think I've hammered that point. All right, folks, hopefully you subscribe to Linux for Seniors. I'm going to take you on a brief tour of this thing. If you have never seen any of my videos, I started this channel on the February 9th. My previous channel had over 450 videos. And more importantly, as my library grows, okay, I've got some videos in here. When these get over 100, and they'll more likely will reach that point in 6 months. This comes in handy. This little search key is only available for regular web browsers. I'll say it again. It's only available for regular web browsers. If you are using a mobile device to watch my videos, first of all, the screens are too small. But second of all, just be aware that in your mobile devices, in your YouTube apps, this is not here. You will have this search feature, which searches all of YouTube. What's the benefit of this in a regular web browser? All of my videos are indexed. It's like meta tags. You can punch in a keyword, like USB, for instance. I don't have anything, right? How about mouse? Oh, I got some videos that have the hits of mouse pointers. Something to do with mouse pointers. They're keyword indexed. That becomes important when this library grows in enormous size. You can still scroll manually. That's all up to you. I also, again, I encourage that you subscribe. You may not have noticed this if you are a subscriber, and I will say thank you and welcome. There's some links for you here. You can click on these actually. Or you can go to the About section and kind of scroll down to the bottom. Here's some extra links for you. You're looking for a different Linux distro? Go to Distro Watch. You're looking for this mouse pointer here? Go watch my video. But more importantly, here's the website where I got it from. It's a non-profit website, .org.com. What's the difference again? Commercial, non-profit. Again, the DNS translates that into an address for my web browser to connect. So moving forward, I am going to try to be inclusive of a lot of different subject matters. And I do encourage that you subscribe. And on that note, I will say have a wonderful tomorrow, and thank you for watching.